Oh, folks, here we are again. It is me, Soul, host here of the Soul Sessions, as featured here on Wrestling Republic. But with me today, Scottish independent wrestler, graduate FPWA, Harmony Skye. Welcome to the show, Harmony.
Hello, thank you for having me on.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. But so, Harmony, what if viewers might not be familiar with yourself and your journey? How did you get into wrestling to begin with?
Um, I started watching wrestling, I think I was like 10. My dad used to watch it when he was younger. And then he fell back into it around Mania 30. And by the time it was WrestleMania 30 to 31, I'd knew everything there was to know about wrestling.
Ooh,
Um, like WrestleMania 31 is probably like the best memory of wrestling that I've got because that was like the first. Um, and it was just I didn't really have like a specific memory of being like I want to be a wrestler. It was just kind of it was just always in my brain that I wanted to do that. It looked like it was fun,
mhm.
and my dad just tried everything to get me into training. But I was only like 12 at the time, and especially in Fife, there was no schools that would take anybody of that age.
Mm.
Um, so just kind of looking for them, and I eventually did like find a couple that led me to a couple of different training schools, and then I finally got to FPW, which is where I still train today.
Oh, absolutely. And you mentioned Wrestle 31 there, and it was a hell of a card and a show as well. I want to know favorite match of WrestleMania 31. What was it? I need to know.
Oof. I would typically just say like the Bellas versus AJ Lee and Paige, only because I am a massive Bella Twins fan. Like they were just it for me. Also, I think I'd go for maybe it was Seth and Randy was at 31 as well, I believe.
Of course.
I'd probably say that one as well.
Oh, it was definitely a hell of a match as well. Remember you mentioned the Bellas versus Paige and AJ Lee, and obviously you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned love for the Bellas, and the Bellas would have their own reality show as well with the WWE, and it was such a landmark moment as well because not even they maybe not got much time on the program, but they got their own show as well. For you, Harmony, being such a fan as well and a female wrestler, do you feel like that was such a leap for female wrestling that these creators were able to get their own show and platform?
I think, especially with Total Divas, I think that came at the right time. It's when women were starting to get a wee bit of opportunities, but we're still having like 2 to 5 minutes, and that was bringing in a bigger audience, which was kind of I think how Give Divas a Chance kind of started. No, people were interested in the Divas, but I think getting to see that they were actual people instead of just like nice looking women or like arm candy, getting to know like how hard they work, the respect that they need to earn. I think that was a really pivotal moment, especially for like the WWE. And obviously them branching off and getting their own show, I think that was just an extension of that. I think it's great to get. I mean, people that didn't like wrestling would probably still watch Total Divas, Total Bellas because it's still an interesting show. And I think that's brought it would bring men in as well, but a lot of women that maybe didn't even know what wrestling was
Hmm.
into the community, which I thought was great. And I loved Total Divas, even though it was all fake.
Yeah, totally. We've had many guests on the show, and they always admire the show. I mean, I've only seen bits and pieces, but the one I can always think of is Renee Young getting her hat taken away, and John Moxley chase after the guy, and that's an interesting
Yeah,
segment there. But I always wonder about the Bellas twins as well, because I've heard so many people have this admiration for them, and I wasn't watching wrestling back at the time, so I couldn't imagine, what was the impact that they had? Was it just the character work or how they presented themselves, or was it just something you never seen before about the Bells? What was so drawn about them that really made you have that passion?
I think at the start, to me, was just like how hungry they were. Like you could just tell that they wanted to be there, especially if they kind of never wrestled before. And then as they kind of went on, when Nikki started to get her Divas Championship reign, you could tell that she was really working for it. And I think just them also coming from not much and actually being these massive superstars and being in the wrestling for like 12 or however many years they were on the roster. I think that really, I mean, it's kind of rare these days that people actually stay that long.
Mm.
Um, and I think it was just 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 seeing women who were really trying to like fight and work hard. Like I love Michelle McCool and I love Beth Phoenix, just women that were really like, just like the men, I suppose. That was rather than them just kind of trying into the ring and not really. I mean, you can't say that people wouldn't take it seriously, but you could tell that they were trying to like work harder. They wanted 10 minutes, 15 minutes rather than just two. They weren't
Mm.
happy with two. They really wanted to work hard for that. And I think that's why I was so drawn to them. Even at 10, I was like, that's something that I could be.
Mm.
Um, And I think that's why I was so drawn to them rather than anybody else. And there's two of them, so it's like extra, like they work harder, try and one up each other, which I suppose is a good thing as well.
Of course, absolutely. We had a previous guest of the show, Ashley Vega, on, and she talked about how the Divas era is, even though now some people look at it back with a negative viewpoint, saying it wasn't tasteful or it wasn't positive, but being fans at that time, a lot of people say that it was good for what it was, and it got people into wrestling in the first place. Would you agree with that statement? Do you feel like the Divas era is just too overly hated?
I definitely prefer wrestling now. It's great to see women getting these five. Even now though, some women, the roster's still it's not as where it should be. And I think back, like the early 2000s, I think it was really, I do look on it as like fond memories, because if it wasn't for that, then we wouldn't be where we are. If it wasn't for those women that were willing to do bra and panty matches or just even walk men out to the ring, we wouldn't be able to get these spots and opportunities that we have today. And I think that's for any women in wrestling. I think WWE really set the barrier on opening up those gates to let women have more time and more freedom to do kind of what their heart desires, I suppose.
Of course, absolutely. And I must know, which Bella is your favorite, Nikki or Brie?
I was always a Brie girl.
Oh.
A lot of people go for Nikki, but I was always a Brie fan.
Always a Brie fan. Were you a fan of her theme, the whole Brie mode theme as well? Were you a fan?
I preferred the Bella Twins theme. I did like the Brie mode gimmick though. I thought that was nice to actually have a singles moment.
Oh, very much so. It was an interesting theme. Definitely going to be on some people's Spotify year roundup, I think, as well.
But yeah, maybe not mine.
Oh, well, maybe not yours. But I know you would go on to FPWA. And, we had the head trainer there, Andy Roberts, on the show as well. And he talked about how going into training there as well. I want to know, from your experience, Harmony, what was FPWA like for yourself?
Well, I was one of the first people to be at FPWA. I was the very first female there. And I got let in early, so I was only 15 when I joined, and I was in the adults class before I was 16, as well as Ross Hunter. We'd been training with Johnny Lyons beforehand for a couple of years, so Andy kind of saw what we were capable of, and I was just lucky that he put faith in us, and we were able to really push past what he expected of us. It was nice to have a clean and nice looking place to wrestle. I'm not saying that anybody else I've trained before wasn't, but this is something, especially in Fife, there's not really any schools. I can count on one hand how many there are. So getting to actually train at somewhere, and it's twice a week, we're there at 5 hours a week. We get pushed really hard. I was there last night as well, and even in the beginners class, which I was at last night, it's we still push people. It doesn't matter how experienced you are. We'll get you in there. We'll get you training like anybody else should. And it's just a really, really great environment to be in, especially with all the trainees there as well. Everybody likes each other. Everybody respects each other. We're all there for the same thing. And I think that's an amazing environment to be in.
Of course, I've seen the videos on the Instagram from FPWA, and I see all these training courses as well. You got yourself doing drills and exercises with a partner as well. I can't imagine with your first class as well, being there and then getting onto it, your body adjusts to all the muscle wear and tear and all that. It must be quite a vigorous workout as well.
Yeah, it is. It could be quite intense, especially when you first start out. We do take things slow, so it's you don't get pushed into doing thousands of bumps and then thousands of rope runs. We take it one step at a time. If you're comfortable with doing one thing, then we'll move into the other, then move into the other. But it does really take an impact on your body. You definitely feel it the next day, because it is, when we warm up, we do essentially just do a full workout, and then we actually get into the rest. And we really, really strive on building up our adrenaline and our cardio and things. That's really what we work on doing before getting to the wrestling. I think those two things come in hand, and that's one thing that Andy really, really pushes for us to do at every training session.
Of course, in FPW, we put on some showcases as well. There's student showcases, but even some shows as well. A show that I've been at myself and seen you wrestle at as well, Harvey, at Twas a Night at the Wrestling, where you would face Lexi Kimbo as well. Yeah. I just want to know, what was that match like for yourself, and coming out to the whole Truth nightclub? Obviously, all having a great time, honestly. We're just loving it.
Yeah. It's great, because I'm from roundabout leaving, Truth, 5-minute drive from my house. So it's the most local place that I'll be able to wrestle. and I get to have all my family there. I mean, Lexi Kimball, I trained with them before we went to FPWA. So I
Oh,
think I've been training with them since they were like 10, 11. So I've kind of been on their whole journey with them figuring out who they are, their character. And I think it was really rewarding for us to get into work together, especially in like a proper show. It wasn't just like a wee pre-match or anything. We were on a proper show, had entrances, and I think that was probably like the best thing. I remember the first time that I met them, I was like, you could be like my wrestling child. I knew that we were having a proper match, and it was just like, I think it just came full circle in that moment. It was really, really great to have a match with them.
no, that's great to hear. And obviously, you would come out to a song that I know, and I think everyone knows is an absolute banger. Grooves is
Mm-hmm.
the heart. What made you pick that song? Because hey, it's a banger. But I'm so curious, why that song?
There was a couple of different ones I had. I did start out using one by a wee indie band, and they gave me permission, but then they turned that song off, so I was like, I better change it.
Mm.
My dad's going to love how much I mention him in every single interview I do. But my dad really helps my character, my promos, anything wrestling related. He loves putting input in. He gave us a couple, and I felt like I play it with my earphones in, and I close my eyes and I imagine, and it sounds like so cringy, but I imagine me walking out to see if it would imagine like if it would look good.
Mm-hmm.
But you never know until you actually do it. And I felt like that was one song that a lot of people know at least the chorus. And I thought that it matched the character, it matched me as even just a person, as the ring gear. I think it really emphasised who Harmony Skye was, and I think it was just a perfect song.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
still debating on it, but I'm getting set on it as like the proper Harmony Skye theme song.
I think it should be the actual proper national anthem for yourself, Harmony. But I obviously you see in wrestling characters maybe go to a more sinister and darker side as well. Do you think
Mm-hmm.
maybe is there a song in mindset if that were to happen with yourself?
I'm not set on one. My dad does have one that he would like me to use, and he's always said that even before like Harmony was who she was. But I probably have to test a couple before I like got set on a dark side theme song.
Ooh, surprises all around. We never know what might be in store for the musical side. But I want to talk about your moveset as well, Harmony, because I know you have such a favorite move as well, and such one that you always wanted to learn and involve in. Is that's the DDT, which I think
Mm-hmm.
is a great move as well. We've seen John Moxley with his paradigm shift, and many others. Obviously, Jake the Snake being one of the innovators of the move. What is it
Yeah.
about the DDT as a wrestler that really draws you to it? Is it the ferocity behind it, or maybe the quickness, or just how it's performed?
I love how there's so many variations of DDT. Like you could literally do anything. And John Moxley, who was Dean Ambrose, was my favorite wrestler and still is of like ever. He was who I really admired. I do love just doing the move. It was always the ones where it's like how to do like wrestling moves. That was like a DDT was the one that I would always look up on YouTube. And I
Mm.
think it's just kind of what I was always pushed towards. Um, it's kind of like the same with like me using a drop kick. I like to use a drop kick if I feel comfortable with it. I slipped once, so I'm not too comfortable on it now. But it's like the same with like Brie Bella. I like to pull moves for people who really inspire me, really who've made me maybe the wrestler I am, and people who I would never have known what wrestling was without them. So like John Moxley, Brie Bella, kind of people like that. And I think that's what it's just inspiration for other people.
No, of course. You mentioned John Moxley there as well. By the time I got into wrestling, he had already left the WWE. But I was fascinated for fans of his when that announcement of saying WWE publicly announced, Moxley's gone, he's not going to sign a company. As a fan, was that really like a whoa, what's going on here moment, or was it like, oh, is this something's happening here? What was your thoughts on that?
I was sad because I really did love Dean Ambrose and the whole character, but then the character was going sideways anyway. I wasn't really sure what they were doing, and I was quite fed up as like he's the person that I'll tune in every week for,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing them kind of bring his character down to like I didn't even tell what it was. It was like some sort of like I'm the one to be around the fans because they're infectious, and I was like, and you could tell he wasn't enjoying it. You could tell that wasn't what he wanted to do as a wrestler. And then when the whole John Moxley thing started coming back around, I was getting all really excited about that. AEW was just starting out. I didn't really watch AEW as much, but I could tell that that's just like the place that John Moxley needs to be, a place where he can bleed and use whatever. Like, I feel like that's just what he was always done, even before WWE. That's kind of the matches that he had. So I think it was probably the best move for him to leave WWE at that time as well.
Of course. And obviously, John Moxley or from Dean Ambrose was part of one of the best groups in WWE, the Shield. And we've seen what Seth Rollins is doing at the moment, and even the tribal chief, Roman Reigns. Yep. Seeing the Shield as well and disperse to what they're doing in their own past, do you feel like that cements the Shield as maybe if not the greatest faction in all of wrestling?
I'd say that they are. I think just because if you look at them as individuals, they've each already got like Hall of Fame careers. They've each like accomplished everything. And as a unit, I think everybody had like a soft spot for the Shield. The Shield was always my favorite faction. It's like you never knew if they're going to be healed or the face or whatever. And they're they're the most amazing wrestlers, and they're the most amazing at pros and character work. So I think, in my opinion, I'd say that they are the best faction that's ever been in WWE.
Well, interesting. I might actually agree with you there. Some people may not like that, but hey, face the facts. That's what it is. Well, that's what it is. But I need to know, Harmony, people like to do a male and female version of groups and all that. If you had to build a female version of the Shield, maybe even back then in 2013-14 time, who would you put in that kind of stable? Who do you think would thrive from a female Shield?
I feel like it's only fitting to put Becky as in Seth's place. I've always loved Becky as well. Before that, is when she was the last kicker, that's like who I was drawn to as well. I feel like if Roman, it's like I'm making the four horsewomen, but I feel like Charlotte's the only one that's kind of like able to emphasize who Roman is as a character. She's amazing. She's essentially the female version of Roman Reigns. And as a wee twist, I feel like Dean Ambrose was always a wee bit after rail, so I'm going to put in Nikki Cross
very good
as
choice.
a Dean Ambrose.
I like that. Go for that. That's a very good choice. And obviously, Nikki Cross as well, obviously being from Scotland, and many other Scottish wrestlers have, gone from here to WWE and even all over the world. What does it mean for you, obviously, being from Scotland, to see people from the home country going out and doing great things across the world?
I think it's amazing. Like, I remember when Drew won the Rumble, it was like he was at ICW. I've been to ICW. It's like, so that's where he's went to. He's like now going to main event WrestleMania, and it was just like, especially now that there's two Scottish women in the WWE, which is now a lot, but it's better than one. And during lockdown, we got a seminar with Viper or Piper, whatever she goes by nowadays, and getting to talk to her. That was before she went to WWE or before she was on Raw. Getting to even just talk to her and kind of get advice from her, and I'm like, now that she's made it, she's like on the biggest company in the world. And it's insane to just see like the similarities between not just me and her, but like her and any trainee that's at the school, any female trainee, anybody that's wanting to start out. We've all started in the same place. We've all started in the same country. We've all started like at the bottom, and they've made it to the top.
Absolutely. Piper Niven's doing great things now, from getting the change of the name to Doudrop, and then hopefully more is coming of it. What was it, if you had that seminar with Piper as well, what was something you took away from that as like a close-knit, I'm connecting with this piece of advice?
I remember her saying, like, you're always going to face, like, hate and sexism, especially just as a woman and in general. Like, that's the things that you're going to face, especially in wrestling. It's a very male-targeted, like, sport.
Mm-hmm.
And just like who cares? Like, if you're there today, you're the same as everybody else. Who cares if they're saying all this? Because at the end of the day, like, you're the one that's doing the hard work. You know how hard you're working. You're the one that's going to make it. I remember telling her a story about like one of my PE teachers. He was like, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "I want to be a wrestler." He's like, "But you can't do the splits, so you can't be a wrestler." I was like, what does that even mean? I've never really watched any women do splits in the middle of a match. Like, it's not something that I needed today. And I remember telling her that, and she was just like, just as shocked as I was when I first heard it. And that's why she was like, just didn't listen to anybody, even if it's just average hate, like people thinking like you're not a great wrestler. It doesn't matter, because if you love it at the end of the day, you keep doing it, you can only get better.
Of course, absolutely. People can have their own critiques and visions of what it is, but yourself, Harmony, are they're performers. You know, you guys are in the ring there 24 hours or even any hours of the day. You know, you guys know best at the end of the day. Do you feel like maybe there's some people have too much outside insight when they don't know what you guys go through day in and day out?
I feel like, yeah, if people kind of hate on it, they're like, that's not a real sport, or that's easy. It's like, but you haven't done it yet. Even just taking one bump, it's sore. Like everything's sore in wrestling. It's just something that your body gets used to. It's really draining. It's like the bad side of wrestling that nobody talks about. It's draining. It takes a lot of your energy, a lot of your time, even a lot of your money. But it's something that I know will be rewarding at the end, or it has been rewarding, and it's something that is fun while you're doing it. But it can be so tiring. It's so painful. Like I've hurt my 3 to 4 muscles in my rotator cuff were injured. Just a simple somebody was trying to flip air me, and it just did the workout the way it was supposed to. And it's like the easiest things. Like people have died in the ring, and I don't think people really take that in. It's like it is dangerous, but I suppose you have to be a wee bit mental to be a wrestler at the beginning. So,
a hell of a world we all love, and you know you got to take care of yourself at the end of the day. You know, we've had multiple guests on that talked about taking a step back and doing stuff they love. You know, we had Shay Monet and talked about how they always love to take back and have some personal time. And we've had Riho, the current ICW Women's Champion, talk about how she wanted to take some time for herself and reevaluate and, you know, find her inner peace. And I want to know for you, Harmony, because I know you have on your Instagram as well, mental health matters. And that certainly does. You know, we always got to take care of ourselves at the end of the day. For yourself, how do you, you know, when you're not in the ring and not doing everything that you do and hurting and all that time, taking some time for yourself, how do you be able to do that?
Yeah, well, even since I started, like, mental health to me matters so much. There's so many people I know, myself included, that struggle with mental health, and it's a daily thing. There's times where recently I had to take months away from wrestling. I only really just went back the other week after taking a couple months off. And I think it's just protecting yourself. I think at some point you've got to say, like, if I don't take care of myself, then really what's the point? Like, your mind is like the root of yourself, essentially. It's like such like happy words to use, but it's the most important thing to take care. Like, it's just as important as taking care of your body. Like, if you don't feel well, you'll take care of that. If your mind isn't good and isn't in a good space, you really have to take care of it. It's like you can go sideways so many times. You can go really, really dark. You can have dark thoughts and all this and that. And I think it's really, really important to speak to people, even go to professionals, really look into stuff on it, even research. I think just stuff like that is important. And people are really talking about mental health, especially like these days. A lot of teenagers are really open about their mental health. I feel like I've been quite open about my mental health, especially like when I do like Q&As, I'll be really open about it. I feel like the past couple of months have been really hard, but they're starting to get better. Like last time I wrestled was at the showcase for Lexi Kimball, and I just taken like a couple months off, and then I went back at our female class we had last month, and it does get hard to step back in, especially wrestling or any sort of sport or physical activity. It's hard because you've taken so long off, so it's kind of as if my body's reset and isn't used to it. Like I'm a bit sore today because I ran the ropes last night, I taken bumps last night, but essentially if you don't take care of your mind, then you know it's just kind of, that's where the point where you have to really look in the mirror and kind of say to yourself, like, it's time to get help.
Of course, absolutely. You know, I implore every viewer you're watching, and you have any concerns about yourself, you know, there's always help out there. Search them up online and anywhere, and just speak to people as well. You know, it's never good to keep these things bottled up. Always be open with others. You know, I want to continue on, Harmony, to ICW. Now, great Scottish promotion we have here. You know, I want to know, what about ICW is such an enjoyable factor for you?
I've only been twice, and every time I've been, it's just been so crazy. It's like full-on production, so it's just as that. It's like a mini WWE or a mini AEW or whatever you want to say. I'm really associated with them or whatever, but it's just like the most professional setting. And I think as a wrestler, once you've been doing all these like shows kind of around the belt where it's like you help build the ring, you help do this, and you get in and they're like, we're going to take your pictures, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. You're like, oh, this is like proper big time stuff. And I think even debuting at 17, so I essentially was even old enough to buy a ticket and go and watch the show. and I was debuting on that. That was the one thing that I always wanted to do, because I've been wrestling since I was 13. So I really, really wanted to debut before I was old enough to actually go watch it, which I did achieve. I think I did. I think it was a couple months before my 18th birthday or whatever it was. But it's just the insanity, which is in the name. Like, it's just so crazy. The storylines are amazing. Mark Dallas is just, he's literally a genius. Like, anything that he comes up with, it's insane. And I don't know, it's always kind of, it's like our little secret still. And I like that. I like the fact that it's huge, but it's still ours, and we still get to kind of keep our grabs on it. So.
Of course, absolutely. And ICW was sadly be taken off the WWE network, and now they're on Fight. Do you feel like this could maybe be a new dawning era for ICW being on Fight?
I think it will bring new opportunities. I think I can only get more insane for here. I don't know if they were maybe trying to censor themselves. I mean, because it's still WWE, it's still the network. It's like, I don't know, but I think it can only get more intense, insane, bigger, better to here. I think the storylines, who we've got as champions right now, who we could have as champions, I think everything's just going to get bigger and better.
Of course, and you mentioned champions. I mentioned we had the current ICW Women's Champion Rio on the show, and when Rio was on, she laid out a challenge to any female guest of the show to stand up and try and take the title off her. But, well, Harmony, you're now a guest of the show. Would that be you be interested in taking up that challenge of Rio?
I would love to wrestle Rio. I've only met her once. I met her the first time I went to ICW, and she was lovely, and she's an amazing wrestler. And I think her getting to have a run as champion in ICW is pretty great. I think I was there her first week, so we debuted the same week. I know she's a champion, so it's like crazy to see where you can go in such a little amount of time, besides the fact that she's been wrestling for however long she's been wrestling. But I would love to take a challenge, any challenge to anybody. It's like, I'll come on your show. Doesn't matter if there's 5 people there or 5,000 or 50 or whatever. I'll just do it because I just love it. I just love wrestling. Any women, I'll take on a challenge.
Wow, we always love a challenge here. And, many guests of the Soul Sessions have faced each other. It's a common theme here. And, 3 we've currently had before are someone you want to wrestle in Nicole Jasmine, Ashley Vega, and Daisy Jenkins. What is it about those 3 former guests that you want to fight?
I just love them all so much. Like, we're really, really close. The first female wrestler I ever wrestled, the first female that I ever looked up with was Ashley Vega. I was always the female, like just the one female in the class. I was always just the one girl. And getting to be in the ring with another woman was just like, it's so different. And she was the first person that I ever really done any sort of wrestling with that was a female. Nicole Jasmine, I think we just met through me being at FPWA. She comes to our female classes, and just how she's grown, especially her confidence in the past year and a half, is insane. Like, she was always ready to go. She was always up for everything, but her confidence has just skyrocketed since she's debuted, and since she's got the taste of the crowd and everything. She's just out of this world. And Daisy Jenkins, she debuted, she started at the training school, I think, just before lockdown started. So we kind of were only able to communicate through Zoom, and we were doing promo tournaments, and you had to go against somebody, and me and Daisy went against each other. So we spent weeks just speaking to each other about wrestling. We were promo against each other before I was Skye, before she was Daisy Jenkins. It was just spitballing ideas, and then getting to actually wrestle with her as well. She was kind of the only female there as well. We've had a couple female talent kind of come and go, but she was been the one since she started. She's been the one female that I've been able to train with a lot. And now that Ashley's kind of joined FPWA, it's just we're there every week. We get to talk to each other all the time, spitball ideas. And when we had our match on the First Truth show, that was just, it was proper full circle. It was the first woman I looked up with, probably the last woman I've looked up with. Now we're getting to actually have a full match. It was just really rewarding and crazy and overwhelming.
Full circle moment there. I mean, all my guests want to fight each other. Who knows? Maybe at FWA's next show, we'll have the Soul Sessions Fatal Four Way. You, Ashley, Daisy, Nicole. I'll just be there at the bar, like, why all my guests fighting each other? Please stop. Who knows what we get? Who knows what we get in this crazy world of wrestling? Now, Harmony, I want to talk about the female wrestling bubble in itself. All worldwide. We had Steve Tortello, who is the owner of Warrior Wrestling, and he's had champions such as Athena and many great others for his women division, even Thunder Rosa. I want to know for yourself, Harmony, and seeing female wrestling worldwide, and obviously seeing the evolution of it, it must be such a very proud thing to see.
Yeah, definitely. It's first starting out as a wrestler, especially being like 12, 13, kind of just starting to get into it. I didn't even know or realise that there was female wrestlers all over the world. It's just like you just think it's in WWE and it's just in these massive companies, and obviously all these women all over the world. Still, some wrestlers, they have worked so hard to get us where we are. Like, I feel like it always starts with the indies. The indies are always where the opportunities kind of rise. The indies are where women have had the most time for the longest time, and getting to see how hard hitting and strong that they have been, especially even if you look at like 2000s matches and who were wrestling in the 2000s and the 90s. It's just insane how hard they were working, and they weren't getting credit for that ever, and they probably still don't get credit for it. I mean, I said even like 20 minutes ago that all the opportunities came for WWE, which they didn't really. It was like the women of the indies really helped pave the way for us to be able to have all these matches, have all these opportunities, be at all these companies all over the world, different countries. It's really like points to them for going to all these shows where they probably get sexism and hate and all that, and they were still like backing out 15-minute matches, like 5-star after 5-star. It was like insane to even think about, and like nobody really knew about it.
No, of course. Obviously one country that's doing so well the wrestling was Japan. We had former WWE and AEW star Bobby Fish on, and Bobby said that he feels every wrestler should always try to go to Japan because it's a good asset to have in your skill set with the crowd and the match types as well. Is Japan maybe something in your future, Harmony?
I remember thinking, like, when I was younger, I was like, I didn't care, I wouldn't really like to go to Japan. But as I've got older, it was like, Japan's probably the best place to be. It's like, wrestling in Japan's just like, it's massive, it's so big. I followed Mariah May before she debuted, and now she's wrestling at like Stardom, and she's she's all over there, and just getting to see like how hard hitting they are, like proper force. Like they'll not take anything. The proper fight, like they just go for it, and I think that's probably something that every wrestler will benefit from. It's a completely different style. Like, I think stuff's even used on you use the opposite arms in Japan, and it's like you're basically learning from scratch if you go out to Japan, and like probably some other countries as well. But Japan's probably the biggest one, and I would love to go to Japan, even for one match, or like even just to watch. It would be insane to just take in. It's like a completely different thing. It's like a brand new factor, so it would be amazing to have in like your skill set.
Of course, and Japan has many great factions over there as well, with Chaos and United Empire and even the old Willet Club as well. I want to know, Harmony, if you got a chance to join a particular faction, you got one in mind you'd love to join?
Probably say the Bullet Club. It's probably the most obvious answer, but it's like, you just look at the people that they had in it. You had your Kenny, even like Finn Balor and stuff. Like, I remember the first time it was like a couple of times I've been at a WWE live event, and I just held up like the wee sign, and they came in and done it. I was like, oh my god! Like, I was like freaking out because like he acknowledged it, I suppose. I think the Bullet Club, just because I don't know, it's just something about them. Like, there's so many people in it, but everybody in it's amazing.
No, absolutely. A whole rack of roster of excellent talents that are just too sweet and ready to kick your arse at the end of the day. And also, New Japan has now their women title as well, which is currently held by Mercedes Moné as well. It's such a nice thing to see New Japan have a women's title as well. Do you feel like is going to be the start of something really big for New Japan with this women's title.
I think definitely. I think especially bringing in Mercedes is probably just emphasising how big it actually is. Especially that being the place that she went to when she's left WWE. It's just like, if she thinks it's like the place to be, then it's probably the place to be. And it could probably only get bigger. I know that I feel like she would go to somewhere that would just kind of have us just below or just at the same spot as anybody. I know that we're just going to elevate and it's going to get even bigger, especially with Mercedes being there.
Yeah, I know. I must know. What do you think of Mercedes' theme as well? The whole Money theme. Is it good? Is it a banger, or is it?
I do prefer a WWE theme, but I've not really listened to the Mercedes Money theme as much. But I used to listen to the Sasha Banks theme song all the time. That one was on my playlist.
Well, that was definitely a classic as well. And, obviously, the biggest show of shows for wrestling, WrestleMania 39 in LA, is coming up very, very soon. And we have a hell of a women's match on there as well. A clash of ages, the past and the future with, Becky, Trish, and Leah versus Damage Control. For a fan as yourself, seeing these clashes of eras, it's got to be like a once-in-a-lifetime moment for you, right?
Definitely. I think, especially with Lita kind of comes and goes sometimes, but with Trish coming back and Trish, it's Mania, so it can only be, a big, amazing match. And I think being a Becky fan, knowing how much she admired Lita, and I think it's just, even if you're an early 2000s fan, you're like, Trish and Lita are coming back, or if you love the Divas era, Trish and Lita are there. It's like you've got a bit of everything. With Becky and Bayley being the four horsewomen, you've got that 2015 aspect, and then you've got Dakota and Skye. It's just got a bit of everything. Literally from then to now, it's going to be one that I'm definitely going to look forward to.
Of course, and WrestleMania is shaping up to be very, very entertaining in itself. Is that your most hyped match for the card, or is there anything else there that's really piquing your interest, being like, ooh, I'm going to be staying up late for that?
I'm looking forward to Cody and Roman a lot, which is probably the most pushed match, but they're just both such amazing wrestlers and such amazing storytellers, especially with whatever Sami Zayn's going to be doing as well. Anything that Sami Zayn's going to be doing, I'm hoping it is against Roman, but it could be a tag match or whatever it is. I'm looking forward to seeing what Sami's going to do. It could only be like a Kofi Mania moment.
Yes, of course, absolutely. And I know some fans on the internet have been, it should have been Roman versus Sami at Mania. It should have been Cody and Roman at Mania. Do you feel like, the way with Cody and Roman, do you think it was maybe the best choice? Or do you feel like, no, let's do a Daniel Bryan 2014. Let's get all this changed. Let's get the right match on the card. What's your thoughts, Harmony?
I think Cody and Roman was probably the best idea. I think it would probably bring in the most attraction, and it will be a really great match. However, there is 2 nights of WrestleMania this time again. So I think that Sami should have his moment against Roman at either the first night or the second night. I think Roman should be double duty. He's got 2 belts. I think he should have 2 matches.
Yeah, of course, as well. And, there's always the good old speculation from the internet. People are thinking whoever's going to win, they're going to introduce a new title. An old title, the Wind Eagle, the old classic, I think, overhyped title. But, I want to know, Harmony, if they were to introduce a classic title from all the past of the WWE, which title would you like to see make a return for the World Championship?
I would love to see, the spinning title. I never really got to, be a fan of the spinning title. That was kind of gone before I started watching it. I think it's just a great title. It spins. What more could you ask for it? I think it's just when I think of the spinning title, I just think of John Cena, and I would love to see more people wear if you imagine Sami Zayn wear a spinning title, it's just so unrealistic that it just has to happen. I would just love for that one to be back. I never really got to experience that.
To all my co-workers at Wrestling Republic, see, people do love the spinning title, as do I. Stop giving me all the hate backstage, guys. Come on. It's been proven here. But I want to know, Harmony, I love the dream match situation. I always love to ask guests a dream match for them. And I want to know for you, Harmony, WrestleMania, an opponent of your picking for a title of your picking. Who would you pick and which title?
I usually say Becky, but I think I'm going to go for Nikki Bella for the Divas Championship. And I'm only going to go for the Divas Championship because I think, I think I'd make it a triple threat. for
Oh,
Nikki and AJ. I feel like they were the two best Divas Championship, especially with it being like a Divas title. Sometimes it wasn't really treated as a proper title, and I think those two women really feel like it's the same as any other title. It's the same as the men's, it's the same as whatever. It doesn't matter if it's got like a nice wee butterfly or if it's pink. And I think the belt's beautiful. I think it's amazing. I've got like the replica version of it. I think those two women really, really helped push us through like that. Like they really helped us push right down that door. That's probably my dream match today.
a hell of a dream match for WrestleMania. Heck, I even say that would be a main event worthy match in my eyes. But you've mentioned you have that replica of the Divas Champions, but I know WWE released a signature series, the Bella Butterfly Championship. It just shows how much the Bellas were connected to that title. Would you agree as well that the Bellas are maybe even the most popular or recognized stars to be associated with the Butterfly title?
I definitely say at least Nikki was. She had it the longest. I think if you were to show me this and say, like, name a champion that had that belt, I'd probably say Nikki Bella. I think that, like, your AJ Lee and Paige would come straight in behind that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, especially because you had like Total Bellas, you had Total Divas, it was shown on that all the time. Nikki really, really, like, her character was really, really great for that belt. I feel like it just suited her character, her look, her style. I'd probably say they are the most popular for that title, definitely.
No, of course. And you mentioned someone else there, Paige, Saraya, who returned at AEW Grand Slam. I want to know, seeing her come back, was that a very special moment, or was it was just like, wow, I can't believe it. She was retired, no fault of her own, and now she's back wrestling and has been wrestling since on AEW. Such a special moment.
It was, especially for being like, seeing her kind of come in, winning all these titles, having all this time, and she was so young and having to retire so young, and then getting her back for that before she retired officially, getting her back for that wee bit at WWE was pretty great. I do like, sometimes I'm like, God, was this like the right thing? Like all of a sudden she's left WWE and now she's straight to AEW and she's wrestling again. Like sometimes I do wonder if she obviously loves doing it and it's the thing that she's done for like most of her life, but is it safe? That's also that's like the main thing that I think about when I watch her wrestle. But I think it's great just to have her back. You can tell that she's like loving it. I think her getting the freedom that she wanted, and AEW is probably the best place for her to go.
No, of course as well. She's doing the Outsiders with Ruby Soho and Toni Storm. I want to know what your thoughts on that and her whole angle in AEW as well. Are you a fan of it, or do you feel like maybe there's some room for improvement?
I didn't watch AEW as much as I watched WWE, but I follow up on Twitter and stuff. I think I liked the group aspect, but I think she should have got more time as a solo competitor. I feel like with those three women, they do try and always they've always been in a faction, maybe not as much as Toni, but definitely Saraya and Ruby, like they're always in a faction. I feel like they're strong enough to be solos. I feel like being in a tag team, they like being in a tag team, but I think, especially for her comeback, I think it should have been a wee bit longer. And I think the result should have been more impactful. But I think just even having her back for like a comeback was amazing, and getting to have these women who might have no done what they wanted to do and getting to do it in AEW, I think it's just great to be able to watch them do exactly what they want, have the creative freedom that they want.
Of course, absolutely. And Toni Storm, formerly NXT UK Women's Champion as well, and NXT UK in itself. I want to know, were you a fan of NXT UK? Was it a really big thing for you watching?
Yeah, I think it kind of gave me as a UK wrestler a little bit more hope. I think because it was much closer to home, it was much more realistic than getting to NXT, getting to WWE, getting to NXT UK. Was so much more realistic, and especially with my coach Andy, he was on it a couple of times. You had Angel Hayes was on it, like people that I've met. I mean, like the person that's training me was on it, like he was able to get there. So with him giving me everything he knows, it was kind of giving me that bit of hope. I was quite sad when they sort of like ended it and kind of branched out, but I think they're going to do like a European one soon, or what I heard ages ago, but I'm hoping that it does come back eventually.
I definitely did. You know, it was a very special thing and very connected with the UK audience. Obviously,
Mhm.
you had the worlds collide with all the titles being merged into the current NXT. Obviously, Roxanne Perez is their current women's champion. For NXT, do you feel like it had its whole 2.0 era that was loved and not loved? Do you feel like NXT is going to be emerging into a better state now with Triple H, back at creative helm for everything?
I would love for it to kind of like I love to reminisce on what it was like in like 2016, 2015 when like Tommaso Ciampa was there, Johnny Gargano was there, like their whole feud. I think the 2.0 kind of came at such a random time. I think I just don't think it was done the way that they wanted it to be done. I think Triple H is probably the most creative genius in wrestling business. And I think letting him have his freedom. We've
Mhm.
already seen what he's able to do. He was doing like um, Johnny Gargano and all that. He was the one that was doing all that. So if we get that back, I feel like it can only get better.
Of course, as well. Triple H would take over creative controls after Vince McMahon's retirement as well. Being a fan of the product, have you noticed a complete shift in quality, would you say?
I think it's getting better. There was times where it was kind of a bit slowed down, especially I feel like especially last year. I think it's starting to pick up now where you're Roman and Sammy, like that was the type of storylines that I love. It's proper underdog stories that I love. Whereas Vince is very like big guy on big guy sort
Mm.
of like storyteller. That's kind of like what he likes, and it's no. I don't think it's for everybody. I don't think anybody likes that anymore. It's if you've got a big guy and a wee guy, it's a bit more like doesn't matter if this one gets squashed or if this one's like overcomes everything. It's still an amazing story that you get rather than kind of what he was trying to produce.
Mm.
Um, I don't think it'd be as great as it was in the 90s and stuff, but I think it can, as I keep saying, it can only get better. I think that it is getting better with the storylines with Mania. I think that I don't think it's as big and as pushed as it used to be, especially with Mania. Kind of like last year, I was like, oh, it's WrestleMania this time. Like it's just something that I was kind of forgetting.
Mm.
Um, they've definitely started to push it more this year, and I think that the pay per views have just better produced, better promoted and stuff. I think it's getting a lot better now, especially since when Stephanie was taking over. I think that's when it did start to kind of go higher again. But I think Vince is back to me, so we never know.
We never know, indeed. And obviously the current women champions for the main brand roster are Bianca Belair and Charlotte Flair at this moment. But do you feel, Harmony, watching the product, that there's somebody, that people are sleeping on? There's somebody there you're seeing and being like, wow, they have that championship quality. Is there someone you feel like that they're sleeping on the roster for the women's side?
I'm gonna go Liv Morgan, although she did get her championship, like she had it for a wee while, but it still wasn't as big as it should have been. I
Mm-hmm.
felt like she's the sort of wrestler that we have to give like a Mania match, let her win at Mania. It's like she was at NXT, she's been there for years. I think she's improved so much. I love her character and everything. You could tell that she just loves it. Like that's just all she is. It's just a woman that loves wrestling so much. And I think that she should have had her reign longer. I
Mm-hmm.
think that she should have had better storylines, better opponents, bigger matches. I think everything should have been bigger for her.
Yeah, of course, and she would more commonly face Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler, and also drop it to Ronda. Do you feel like maybe that was not the best matchup for her, and maybe should have been maybe someone else for Liv's reign to be more improved?
Yeah, I think so. Some people love Ronda being in the wrestler. I'm not really the biggest fan of Ronda being a wrestler. Um, I think it's just they're pushing her a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But she has definitely brought in more exposure for us, especially from like the female roster. She's definitely brought in a bigger audience. But I think at times you have to kind of, it's like we've all worked like this much harder. She's getting to come in. She got to the point at trying to get a Mania match, whereas you had all these women that won the on Mania that year. I think Liv should have got somebody that was similar wrestling style or um, similar similar characters, just someone more similar, someone more close to home, someone more relatable.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's any sort of storyline Ronda's in is unrealistic, because we know that she can knock us out. She's one of the hardest women in the world, like as she says, or whatever her catch is. But it's still wrestling. It's like we want this storytelling. We want like the big baby face like to overcome everything. And I think that they kind of just like pulled the plug on that when Ronda came in.
And of course, as well, obviously, a couple of years ago, Ronda, Becky, and Charlotte were main event WrestleMania for both titles as well. That moment as well, first female main event of WrestleMania history. Such a special moment. Can you reflect back as a fan watching that, how personal that must have been?
Yeah, it was. I think, although I just said that about Ronda, I think it was the best decision to put her in the main event. I think it was, as I say, she brings in a wider audience. A lot of people kind of for UFC, a lot of people know just Ronda Rousey in general. She's a massive, she's a big celebrity. She's really famous, probably bigger than like what the WWE can even fathom. But even just being like a Becky fan and being a fan when she won her first title, being a fan when she first came in, getting to see her win not one but two and main event in it, was just like incredible. The match ended really like abruptly, like it was a really awkward ending, but like I didn't really like count that though. But just getting to have like be like, once the female match finished, that was the end of the show. There was nothing else after that. There was like, we were the last ones. It was, especially if it had been WrestleMania, it's like just, it still seems like unrealistic, but it's happened.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's I think it's just because it was something that was dreamed of for so long. The fact that it came true, and I think it was the right women to put in the main event. I think it was really like that once in a lifetime, getting to watch it live, getting to feel like the storyline build up. I think it was just really a dream come true.
Absolutely, very well deserved for all wrestlers involved. They're great talents, and they deserve that main event, especially.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of WrestleMania, I'll love to ask every UK guest. This is a little segment of the show. WrestleMania gets to come to the UK. Mm-hmm. Harmony, where would you like WrestleMania to be held in the UK?
I would obviously love to say Scotland, but I think London's probably the best place to have it for just it's like a big attraction. Everybody really cares what London is. I feel like it would be great to have it in like Murrayfield, but it's not really like as huge as anything could be in London. But if no like Edinburgh or Glasgow, then probably London. I think that's probably where I would like to see it the most.
Well, folks, if you've been keeping up, that's 2 for Ireland, 3 for Wales, 5 for London, and 0 for Scotland. We're still in the last place. We'll get there eventually, I think, folks. We'll eventually get there. But Harmony, I very much appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on the show and
thank you very much.
Share your life. But I want to, as I do with every guest, I know you've been taking some time out of the ring, but have you got anything lined up in the future that people can come see
you? We've got a couple. FPW are setting up a lot of things. There's a lot that we're going to be doing this year. Like things that haven't even been announced, things that no one knows about yet. I think they are probably things to keep your eye out on. To keep a close look on FPW socials. We're always posting something. We're always announcing something. Like we've always got something going on. And with me just getting back into it, I think probably the end of the year will be probably the biggest time for Harmony Skye.
That's good to see. And folks, Harmony's Instagram description will be in the description below. Check that out, give her a follow, and keep up to date with her journey. But thank you everyone. I have been Soul, and it's been great for you to tune in for another episode of the Soul Session. She has been Harmony Skye. Thank you everyone, and have a lovely, lovely day.